My life was simple, and I was content. My husband, Ethan, and I had been married for 5 years, and we were a happy, normal couple. Our routine was cozy and comforting. I'd cook dinner. He'd help set the table. And we'd spend our evenings watching TV or chatting about our day. We both work hard, but always made time for each other. And honestly, I thought things were just perfect. But everything changed when a new couple moved into the house next door. One sunny morning, I was in the garden watering my plants when I noticed her. She looked elegant, with long flowing hair, and she wore a lovely floral dress. She waved at me with a warm smile, and I walked over to introduce myself. I am Lily, she said with a soft, friendly voice. My husband travels a lot for work, so I'm often home alone. I hope we'll be great friends. Her words sounded sincere, and I was happy to have someone new to talk to. Over the next few weeks, we started spending more time together. Lily would come over for coffee, and we'd chat about everything, our favorite recipes, movies, and sometimes even little things that bothered us. But soon, I started to notice something strange. One evening, Ethan came home late. He had been spending more time helping Lily with things around her house. He brushed it off, saying she needed a hand with small tasks because her husband was away. But it kept happening, and I began feeling uncomfortable. At first, I tried to ignore it. But then Lily's behavior began to change. She started wearing more stylish clothes, tight skirts, and bright red lipstick. She seemed to pay extra attention whenever Ethan was around, often laughing a little too loudly at his jokes and complimenting him on things I hadn't even noticed before. I'd see her in the morning in a new outfit or with freshly done hair, and I'd wonder, was all of this really for her husband? Or was there something else going on? One day, Lily looked at me with a playful smile and said, "You're so lucky to have Ethan. He's such a good man, always helping me out." She laughed, but her eyes lingered a little too long. I didn't say much, but inside I felt a knot forming. Then things started to get worse. I'd cook a nice dinner for Ethan, but he'd call me last minute, saying he was helping Lily with a project or fixing something in her kitchen. One night, he didn't come home until late. And when he did, he just shrugged it off like it was no big deal. "She's just a neighbor, and she needs help," he'd say whenever I tried to bring it up. But I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling growing inside me. Lily continued to act more and more strangely. She got a new haircut and started wearing short skirts and fancy blouses, which seemed unusual for someone who claimed to be missing her husband all the time. She'd often talk about how her husband barely came home and how lonely she was. But I couldn't help feeling there was something she wasn't saying. One evening, as I looked out the window, I saw her standing outside, looking at our house. She seemed lost in thought, and it made me feel watched. I tried to talk to Ethan about how I felt. I wanted him to see how all these little things were affecting me. But he just brushed it off with a laugh. "You're overthinking." He'd say, "Lily's just lonely. It doesn't mean anything." But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. As the days passed, Lily's presence seemed to grow even stronger in our lives. Every morning, I'd wake up and see her standing outside, as if she was waiting for something or someone. She'd wave with that same friendly smile, and sometimes she'd drop by unannounced, bringing little gifts or baked goods. It was polite, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was trying to edge her way into our lives. Bit by bit. One evening, Ethan came home later than usual again. I had spent the day preparing his favorite meal, hoping we could have a quiet evening together. But when he finally arrived, he barely looked at the food. He gave a tired sigh, explaining that he had been helping Lily with her garden lights and that it just took longer than expected. My heart sank. I looked at him, feeling a mix of frustration and worry. "Do you even realize how much time you're spending over there?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Ethan laughed it off, patting my hand. "You're just being silly. She's a neighbor, nothing more." But that night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, replaying all those small moments in my mind, the compliments, the laughter, the way she'd look at him with that strange glint in her eye. And I couldn't help but wonder, was I really just overthinking? Or was something more going on? But the feeling in my chest didn't disappear. Even though Ethan had promised to set boundaries, a small part of me still felt uneasy. Trust takes time to rebuild, and my mind kept replaying the past few weeks like a movie I couldn't turn off. The next few days were quiet. Ethan went to work as usual, and in the evenings we spent time together at home. We cooked dinner, watched our favorite shows, and talked about our days just like we used to. On the surface, everything looked normal again. But sometimes I would catch myself glancing out the window toward Lily's house. Her curtains were often closed now. The lights inside were dim, and the cheerful music that used to drift from her open windows had disappeared. It was as if the house itself had become quieter, almost empty. One afternoon, while I was watering my plants in the garden, I saw Lily again. She stepped outside slowly, wearing a simple sweater and jeans instead of the bright dresses she used to wear. Her hair was tied back, and she looked tired, almost fragile. For a moment, we simply looked at each other. Then she walked over to the fence. She said softly. Her voice was different now, calmer, almost uncertain. E. I replied. There was an awkward silence between us. The tension that had once filled the air felt different now. Heavier but less hostile. Finally, Lily spoke. I wanted to apologize again. She said quietly, I didn't realize how far things had gone. I studied her face carefully. For the first time since we met, she didn't look confident or playful. Instead, she looked embarrassed. I never meant to cause problems between you and Ethan. She continued. I think I was just lonely. Her words hung in the air. Lonely. It was the same explanation Ethan had given before, but hearing it directly from her felt different. I sighed softly. Loneliness can make people do strange things. I said, but marriage is fragile too. Even small things can break trust. Lily nodded slowly. I understand that now. She looked toward her house for a moment before speaking again. My husband called yesterday. She said, he's coming back home next week. For good this time. I raised my eyebrows slightly. That's good news, I said. She gave a faint smile. Yes, I think it is. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The wind rustled through the trees, and somewhere in the distance a dog barked. Then Lily took a small step back. I hope someday you'll forgive me, she said. I didn't answer right away. Forgiveness isn't something that happens instantly. It grows slowly, like a plant that needs time and patience. But I also realized something important. Holding on to anger would only keep the past alive. So I gave a small nod. I think we can move forward, I said. Relief flickered across her face. Thank you, she whispered. And with that, she walked back toward her house. That evening, when Ethan came home from work, I told him about the conversation. He listened carefully, his expression thoughtful. So her husband is coming back? He asked. Yes, I replied. Next week. Ethan exhaled slowly, as if releasing a tension he hadn't even realized he was holding. That's probably for the best, he said. I nodded. Maybe this whole situation was just a misunderstanding that went too far. Ethan walked over and wrapped his arms around me. I'm really sorry for everything that happened, he said softly. I should have listened to you sooner. I leaned against his chest, feeling the warmth of his embrace. What matters is that we learn from it, I said. Over the next week, things continued to settle. Ethan stopped going over to Lily's house completely, and our evenings together became something I truly cherished again. We started taking evening walks around the neighborhood, something we hadn't done in months. Sometimes we would laugh about small things like how terrible Ethan was at cooking or how I always forgot where I put my phone. Those simple moments reminded me why I had fallen in love with him in the first place. Then one afternoon, a moving truck appeared outside Lily's house. I watched from the window as boxes were carried inside. A tall man stepped out of a car parked in the driveway. He looked tired but happy, scanning the house like someone returning after a long journey. That must be her husband, I thought. A few minutes later, Lily came outside and wrapped her arms around him. They stood there together for a long moment. Watching them, I felt something unexpected. Not anger, not jealousy, just closure. Later that evening, there was a knock on our door. When I opened it, Lily and her husband were standing there. She said nervously, "I wanted you to meet Daniel." The man beside her smiled politely and extended his hand. "Nice to meet you," he said. Ethan came to the door and shook his hand. For a moment, the four of us stood there, slightly awkward but peaceful. Then Lily spoke again. "We just wanted to say goodbye," she said. "We're moving closer to Daniel's work next month." I blinked in surprise. "Oh, that's fast." She nodded. "I think a fresh start would be good for us." I understood exactly what she meant. "Good luck," I said sincerely. "Thank you," she replied. After they left, Ethan closed the door and looked at me. "Well," he said softly, "that chapter of our lives is officially over." I smiled. "Yes, and maybe that's a good thing." We walked back to the living room and sat together on the couch. The house felt peaceful again. For the first time in weeks, my mind was quiet. Ethan reached for my hand and squeezed it gently. "You know," he said with a small smile, "I think we survived something important." I nodded. "Yes, we did." Because sometimes love isn't tested by grand gestures or dramatic moments. Sometimes it's tested by doubt, temptation, and the quiet choices people make every day. And that night, as I rested my head on Ethan's shoulder, I realized something simple but powerful. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but it was real. And real love is always worth protecting.